Namaste and good morning. We'll start with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times to pray for those who are in suffering. We'll do it together. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhana Mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanan Mrityormukshiyamamrutat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Last time we did the samasa, the compound words, and we have already done 2 types of samasas. Dvandva samasa and Tatpurusha samasa. Today we will change the track a little bit and we'll look more into the verbs. As you know, verb is a very important concept in Sanskrit, and it has been quite some time. Actually, in this Sanskrit 2 course, we haven't yet looked at the verbs. And just to make sure that Miss Verb doesn't become unhappy with us, we'll touch base upon the verb or the dhatu. So, if you remember from the last course, which I hope you still remember, we have these kind of things in the verbs. So verb is the central part of a Sanskrit sentence. We have suffixes called pratyaya. We have prefixes called upasarga. We have tenses and moods. So kala is the time, the tenses, and mood is artha. We have root classes called gana. We have transitive and intransitive verbs, sakarmaka and akarmaka. We have voice, active voice, passive voice. In Sanskrit, there are 3. They are called prayoga and secondary verbs. So we'll see some of these aspects today. We'll go into a little bit more detail today, some of these aspects, particularly related to root classes. In the last time when we did verbs in Sanskrit 1 course, We discussed about root classes, but we did not go into much detail. So today is the opportunity. We will go into a little bit more detail on the root classes. So just to revise a little bit, there are three types of verb endings: Parasmaipadi, Atmanepadi, and Ubhayapadi. Ubhayapadi means that the verb takes both the endings. So actually there are only two types of endings, Parasmaipadi and Atmanepadi, and there are certain verbs which are Ubhayapadi, means they can take both types of endings. What does that mean is, when a verb is Parasmaipadi, when you make the verb conjugations in different tenses, it has certain endings. When a verb is of the type Atmanepadi, then when you make the tenses, it has a different set of endings. So the forms are different in Parasmaipadi and Atmanepadi. What are those forms? So these are the forms in the lat lakara, in the present tense. In the Parasmaipadi, we have ti, taha, anti, si, thaha, tha, mi, vaha, maha. And in Atmanepadi, we have te, ite, ante, se, ithe, dhve, I, vahe, mahe. Example of Parasmaipadi, Dhatu Rupa: Gacchati, Gachatah, Gacchanti, Gacchasi, Gachatah, Gachatha, Gacchami, Gacchava, Gacchama. So all these we have covered in quite a bit of detail in the last course. This is just to sort of give you an overview what all we did. So, and similarly we did for Atmanepadi also. So first, I just want to again touch base upon tenses and moods in Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit, there are 10 tenses and moods. I'll just make sure that we have the page width so that everything is visible. Yes. Okay. So we have these many tenses and moods. So tenses are present tense, known as Vartamana in Sanskrit, and it's so every tense has a nickname starting with Lakara. So Panini prescribed these nicknames starting with Lakara, and in general when you say Lakara, it means tense and moods. So in the verb, it is very common to say what is the Lakara when you are identifying a tense or mood. It simply means what is the tense or mood corresponding nickname which starts with La. So present tense, and then there are three types of past. As I told you that these three types of past, they have different forms and slightly different connotations. That subtlety in the meanings is lost. So today, when we translate them, when we understand them, we just understand as a past tense. But the forms still continue to this day, so we have to understand the forms. But as far as the subtlety of the meaning is concerned, that is practically lost. So three types of past tense. The most common is called lang. That is the most common. There are two types of future. Just like in the past, the subtlety of the meaning is lost, only the forms remain. Similarly, for the two future tenses, the forms remain, but the subtlety of the meaning is lost. So lut is the future tense. which is most commonly used out of these two. Then we have moods, imperative, called lot lakara. And when I say imperative here, it simply means that it is the closest translation possible. If you go by the technical definition of imperative in English or Latin moods, the Sanskrit definition may not perfectly match with that. It is the closest. So that's where the imperative is there. So always understand, when we are learning Sanskrit, we learn Sanskrit as per Sanskrit rather than as per English. We are using English as a medium to learn Sanskrit, but we cannot have one-to-one correspondence. That is probably true in any two languages. So these are the closest translations of the tenses and moods, but every language has its own subtleties, how the tenses are used and moods are used. And same thing is with Sanskrit. So then we have potential mood. And then there are two others, conditional and benedictive, Lung and Ashirling. So Ling has two varieties, Vidhiling and Ashirling, both are called Ling. So that's how they starts with Lakara. But within Ling there is you can say two categories. We are listing them differently. And then there is finally late. So this one has been, as you can see, in a different color pink. And the reason why I have put in this color, because we will not be covering this tense or this mood is no longer applicable in the classical Sanskrit literature. It's only for the Vedic literature. So if you are trying to study Vedas, then this mood is the right thing to learn. But that's not our objective. And when I say classical Sanskrit, it covers most of the scriptures we study, including Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas. They are all not Vedic and they do not use this tense. So we will not study this tense. Now, if you look at other tenses, there are 4 of them which are highlighted in yellow. These 4 are called Sarvadhatuka lakaras. Sarvadhatuka. This is a technical term. When it refers to these 4 tenses, these 4 lakaras. So Sarvadhatuka is the term for these 4, and remaining the word is Ardhadhatuka. We'll come to that word later. Just understand that these 4 are known as Sarvadhatuka. This is just the name in Sanskrit for these 4 lakaras. So what are these 4? Present tense, Vartmana, one type of past, Lang, and these 2 moods. Why are they classified like that? Because their forms have a certain logic. So when we derive the forms of these lakaras versus the other 6, there is a clear distinction of logic. And therefore, these 4 lakaras are categorized separately than the other 6. And today we'll see a little bit more detail. What are those peculiarities associated with the forms related to these 4 lakaras? These 4 lakaras we have done in fairly good detail in the Sanskrit 1 course. But today we'll go a little bit more deeper into them. So for now, just remember that these 10 lakaras, and out of these 4 are the Sarvadhatuk lakaras. They are just a word, category name is Sarvadhatuka for these 4 lakaras. Then there is something called verb classes. All the roots in Sanskrit, if you remember, almost all the words are derived from certain root words. They are called dhatu or roots, and they are in the form of verb. So this verbal root classes, all the verbs are categorized into the 10 classes. Again, the question arises that why the verbs are categorized into these 10 classes. So there are about 2000 total roots. So verbal root classes, that would be more appropriate to say. So why are they categorized like that? Out of the 2000, so Panini gave a list of all the 2000 roots. It's called Dhatu Kosha. It's collection of all the roots. So he has given the root, certain information about the root, and the meaning of the root. One of the things which he has done is that he has divided all the roots in these 10 classes. What is the point of dividing in the 10 classes? The point is precisely what I was referring to earlier as Sarvadhatuka. So these 4 lakaras, I told you that they follow different ways of generating their forms versus the other 6. In order to facilitate the forms for all these 4, he has divided all the roots in the 10 classes. So these are for the Sarvadhatuka lakaras. So what happens for those Sarvadhatuka lakaras, for those 4 lakaras? There is a Gana Vikaran, you can say like infix, but infix is not the correct terminology, that's why I'm saying Gana Vikaran. Gana Vikaran is basically just a letter, or in some cases 2 letters. When you make a form, remember like we had ti, taha, anti. These are our endings. These are the endings. Ti, taha, anti, si, taha, tha. So between the verb root and the ending, a letter or a group of letters come in based upon the Gana. So I'll show you an example. So we know that Vad is a this pen today is not working very well, so I'll just write it with the type. So here, so Vad is a root, and T is the ending, and we have the form as Vadati. We don't have Vadati, we have Vadati. So this akara, this additional akara, where does it come from? We said that first, if you remember when we described the last time, we said Vad will give rise to a stem called Vada. This is called stem. And then with the stem, we will combine these forms called Vadati. So that's how the forms will come: Vadati, Gam, Gachati. So there is a 2-step process where you take the root, make the stem, then with the stem you apply these endings. So we discussed these things in the last time. What we did not discuss is that how do you make a stem from a root? How do you make from Vada? How does Vad becomes Vada? We did not discuss that part. So just 1 second, let me. So we did not discuss that part, that how does root turn into the stem. And this is what the ganas are for, these classes. So what they do is they show you that how to convert a root into a stem. And based upon, so these are the suffix gana vikarana for the root. But so with the root, if you apply these vikarana to the root, it helps you to make the stem. And once the stem is made, then you put that stem and with these endings. So that way you don't have to memorize. If you understand that process, you don't have to memorize the verb forms. You can understand the process for one, and then you can really have the forms ready for hundreds of verbs. And that is the beauty of Panini's structure. That memorization part is really not so much. Whatever we are memorizing is simply because we have not yet gone into the details of all the rules. If you truly have the opportunity to understand all the rules, what Panini has provided, then only those rules have to be remembered and its application, and we really don't have to remember any of the tables. But because that requires a lot of advanced study, we are starting with some sort of tables to memorize and then understand and then go to those rules. So today is an opportunity. So I'm telling you something today which is directly related to Panini rules, and that shows you that how much power does those rules have, and it allows you to understand how the forms are generated, not just simply memorize. So the root changes into the stem, and stem changes into the final form, vadati. So whenever you have this root plus root giving rise to stem, and then stem giving rise to final form. So the lakaras, the sarvadhatuka lakaras, you see, I told you those 4 lakaras. These are called sarvadhatuka. So that's why they are categorized separately, because they go through this 2-step process. In order to generate the forms for these 4 lakaras, they go through this 2-step process. Root changes into stem, and stem changes into final form. That's why these 4 lakaras are categorized separately. Now the logic, how the root changes into stem, is that's the reason why the verbs are classified into the 10 classes, 10 ganas, 10 groups. That this verbal classification of roots in 10 ganas tells you that how the root gives rise to the stem. That is the main purpose of classifying the roots in 10 classes. And this is very important, because that helps you to understand that how the root gives rise to the stem, and once you understand that, then how the stem gives rise to the final form, that's another step to understand. So for taking care of the first step, you divide all the roots in the 10 classes. So we have those 4 lakaras, we call sarvadhatuka lakaras, because they go through this 2-step process to generate the final form. And in order to complete the first step, we divide all the roots in the 10 classes. So I hope that part is clear to you, that why do we have 4, there is a classification of lakaras into Sarvadhatuka and Ardhadhatuka. And then we have classification of all the roots in the groups. These 10 groups, 10 classes. They are called classes typically. So how are these classes named? So these are the 10 classes named. He has given the first root of every class, Panini. So Bhu becomes Bhwadi. That means Bhu Adi. If you do the Sandhi, Bhu Adi, it becomes Bhwadi. It simply means Bhu, etc. Adi means etc. or starting with. So starting with Bhu. So it's a very unimaginative name of classes. The class name is simply saying that because it starts with Bhu, I have just said that it starts with Bhu. That's the name of the class. So Bhu plus Adi becomes Bhuadi. If you remember Sandhi rules, U becomes Va, Ukara becomes Bakara, and Bhu plus Adi becomes Bhuadi. Similarly, Ad, Adadi, Who. Here is a slight difference in the third class because we don't say Huadi. We take the third person singular form and say Juhotyadi. So this is you can say an exception of naming of the class. Probably for the sake of clarification, I think that's what I adopted. If you say Huadi, it might be finding confusing with Huadi. So maybe because of that, they have changed it to Juhotyadi. Then Divadi, Div is the first root of the fourth class. There is no particular logic which is the first root of the class. It is just that some root will be the first root. So Div happens to be the first root as Panini classified. So it's called Divadi. Then Su, Swadi, Tudadi, Rudh, Rudhadi, Tan, Tanadi, Kri, Kriyadi, Chur, Churadi. So when you look at the dictionary, it tells you for a given root which class it belongs to. So it can tell you by the class number or the class name. Generally, it gives you the number, but sometimes when you read the commentary of the commentators, traditional commentaries of Sanskrit commentators, they specify the class name, not just the class number. So, but at least if you understand the class number, most of the dictionaries will tell you the class number. So you will know which class does the root belong to. And this is the third person singular of Lat Lakara form. So Bhu Bhavati, we already have done these forms. Bhu Bhavati, Ad becomes Atti, Hu becomes Juhoti, Div becomes Divyati, Su becomes Sunoti, means presses, Tud becomes Tudati, means beats or hits, Rudh, Runadhi, means blocks, Tan, Tanoti, stretches, Kri, Krinati, buys, Chur, Chorayati, steals. So you see every form has the ti in the end. Here it becomes the because of Sandhi rules. But everything has ti, yet the forms look so different from each other because of the stem. And stem is formed root plus Gana Vikaran. So this Gana Vikaran is the one which is responsible for making the stem. So the way you make the stem is root plus Vikaran is stem. When I say root plus Vikarana stem, there are certain other rules which come into play. It's not simply just you apply the Sandhi and make the stem. There are some other rules also come into play when you make the stem from the root. And those rules differ by the classes sometimes. Sometimes they will differ by the specific verb. Panini has given the rule sometimes for a specific verb that how to make the stem for a specific verb. Sometimes they will differ by within the class, within the number of roots, let's say for example, there are 1079 roots in the first class. Within that, he has created a subgroups, and he says for this subgroup, this rule would apply for making the stem. So those rules are quite complicated, and it's not always straightforward that you can make from root the stem. But in good number of cases, those rules are very few, and it's easier to understand those rules and make the stem. But it will, just to understand, it will not apply to all the verbs. So these are the some of the rules, and I'll explain what are those rules are. Then these are the number of roots in the different classes. So total I said about 2000, so 2042 roots. This is not the exact number. When I say this is not the exact number, it means what? When you say it's not exact means what? It simply means that Sanskrit is a very old language. We have thousands of manuscripts of different giving you the roots and the different number of roots, and they don't all tally with each other. That's why I'm saying it's not exact. Different manuscripts differ in terms of what is the number of roots in a given class. So because of that, this is sort of an estimate. Some people have different estimates, going through all those manuscripts, and in general, it's kind of, we understand that it's about 2000 roots, but the exact number may vary in different manuscripts and correspondingly sometimes in different books. But it will not be too different. It's just for your information. You really don't have to bother about that part. How many roots? Just understand that the biggest class is Bhuadi, the first class. It has more than half the roots, and that's a good news, because this is considered one of the easier classes to make the stem. So some of the classes, as you can see, are very small, like 8th class has only 10 roots, and some of them like more than 1000 roots. Now out of these, I have highlighted 4 classes in yellow. Why these 4 classes in yellow? So all these 4 classes has a characteristic that when you make a stem from these, for these 4 classes, the stem is a akaranta stem. For the classes 1, 4, 6, and 10. So these 4 classes 1, 4, 6, and 10, they get the akaranta stem, means the stem has the final letter as a, short a. What does that help is because my verb endings are the same no matter what the class is. So I put the stem and the verb ending. And because my verb endings are the same, if my stem has the same format ending in short a, if I understand one such combination, I understand all those thousands of combinations where the stem is ending in akara. So that's the beauty of it. If you then understand one form, you understand hundreds or maybe even 1000+ forms, and without memorizing. So I'll focus on the rules of these 4 classes, how to make the stem for verbs belonging to these 4 classes. Okay, so that will give you a lot of impetus to understand that how are we making the stem. So once the stem is made, the final form is very easy. We have already seen that. So gacchati, gacchataha, gacchanti. We already know how to make the final forms. Gaccha is the stem here, and all you simply do is just keep adding the endings. It's very easy. So main thing is to understand how to make the stem. Particularly when the stem is akaranta, to add the final forms is really easy. So that's why these 4 classes are considered special cases, simply because they make it very easy. Once you understand how to make the stem, to make the final forms is very, very easy. So how to make the stem? It says guna of the root. What does guna of the root mean? If you look at the Sandhi rules, there is a guna Sandhi. So akara is followed by ikara, okara, or rukara becomes a, o, and ar. These letters, ekara, okara, and ar, these are called guna. So when I say guna of the root, that means if the root has this vowel, ikara, okara, or rukara, it will change into ekara and okara and ar. That's what the guna is. Guna. So guna of the root means last vowel or penultimate short vowel. So if the root has last vowel in ikara, okara, or rikara, or penultimate short vowel, it will change into the guna letter for making the stem. So let's see an example. We have this dhatu called bhu. And here in order to make the stem, I'll add the akara, bhu plus a. That will be my stem. So now the step is that okara will have the guna. It's the last vowel. So either it should be last vowel or penultimate, means one before the last. So it is the last vowel. And if you go by this slide, okara, it refers to both, either short or long. It has the guna letter as O. So it becomes basically, it becomes O plus A. Now O plus A here there is a special case Purva Rupa Sandhi, Ekara and Okara. If it is followed by short Akara, the Akara is elided here. So this part does not apply in this case. Only this one applies. So Okara changes to Av. As you see, Okara when it even though here our Sandhi rule says that it should not follow the short Akara, but while making the stem, this exception is not applicable. So that means it is followed, okara follows any vowel, will change into av. So it becomes av. O becomes av plus a. And then my stem would become bhava. And now if I have to make forms, all I have to do is add these endings. Bhavati, bhavatah, bhavanti, bhavasi, bhavatah, bhavatha, bhavami, bhavava, bhavam. So once I know the stem, I am good to go to make the forms. So this is the process. And it's really not difficult process in this class. In some other classes and some other routes, there may be more steps involved. But here it's not the case. So that's how the first class works. Fourth class, it adds ya. So div, you will think it should become divya. There is no guna here. So there is no additional rule. And remember, this bhu plus a guna is only for the last vowel or penultimate short vowel. But when we have something like vad plus a, the penultimate short vowel is akara. There is no akara for guna except akara itself. In that case, the stem is simply vada. That's all. So it doesn't have you. It's not that you have to apply guna every time. Whenever applicable, you have to apply guna. So it becomes vada, and then again the forms will become vadati, vadataha, vadanti, like that. So in many cases, all you have to do is just add the akara to the root, and the stem would be ready. Main thing is that stem needs to be understood before you apply the endings. In case of div, here you simply add the yakara. Now there is a special case here. Div becomes div, so it becomes divyati, but that's not the general rule. That's a rule which applies to only a very few roots, and div happens to be one. But normally you will not elongate this letter. You will just add ya. So the stem would be ready. For example, man, if man is the root belonging to class 4. So all you have to say man plus ya, and my stem would become manya. And that's it. Manyate, it's a atmanepade form. So I'll say manyate, manyete, manyante, like that. Tud, the vikarana is akara, and again there is no guna here. So if I have to do tud, so tud plus a, and it becomes tuda. So tudati, tudataha, tudanti, like that. So this is also fairly simple. And if you look at the 10th class, here it's aya. So chur, aya. Here the guna takes place of the penultimate short vowel. In the first class, it is the last vowel, whether short or long, or penultimate short vowel. Here it's the penultimate short vowel, not the last vowel. So in case of chur plus aya, so ukara becomes guna, penultimate short vowel. It's a penultimate short vowel. So it becomes guna. That means what? That means o. And it becomes a choraya. Choraya is the stem and it becomes chorayati, chorayataha, chorayanti, like that. So this is the important part. You just understand how to make the stem, and you are on your way to make a good number of verb forms. So in these 4 classes, making the stem is easy. That is one thing. Once the stem is made, generating the final forms is very easy because it ends in akara. In other classes, the process is a little bit more complicated, and we will not cover that part, at least not now. But I just wanted to give you an insight into this Sanskrit grammar strength, that how all these thousands of roots, people do not memorize all these roots. People understand the rules, and then they understand how to apply those rules. And of course, as you use more and more forms, they will get into your memory. That happens naturally, but not like you have to mug up all the verb forms. You can just memorize 1 or 2 tables to get a feeling of it. And once you understand, then these rules are what gives you the strength to understand many more forms. So with this, I just want to understand that if you follow this, and or if there are any questions. So I'm just reading the questions for you from your chat box. Okay, so there's a question under verb form 8. Why does O in Tanoti have this accent above it? So that's a wrong. Here also there is an accent, and that should not be there. Tanoti and Sunoti also. So thank you for pointing it out. It should not be there. What does penultimate mean? Penultimate means one from the last. So I hope with the example you understood. Like in chur, last letter is refa, and penultimate is okara. So one before the last. That is the penultimate. There is a question, how Gana Vikarana is determined, or every class has a Gana Vikarana established. They have established. You don't determine it. It's already established for every class. The question, 0 grade is becoming Guna by adding an akara in front. Aram Baba, please expand upon your question. I'm not able to understand this. So there is a question, why was Guna Sandhi done for Bhu instead of Yana Sandhi? So Bhu here, if you go by the Sandhi rule, it should have become Bhua, Bhuadi instead of Bhati rather than Bhavati. So there, as I told you, in order to make a stem, there are more rules than simply Sandhi application. And one of those rules says that before you apply Sandhi, you make Guna. So that's an additional rule which happens. That's why we do Guna first. It's not Guna Sandhi. You replace the Okara by Okara, because the rule says that replace this last vowel or penultimate vowel by the corresponding Guna. So you replace it, and after that you apply whatever Sandhi is applicable. So that's how it works. Not that we are doing the Guna Sandhi versus Yana Sandhi. So there is a question, can you please explain one class a bit more? Can please specify? I hope I just explained it again. That should have taken care of it. But if you have further question, just specify that what exactly is the question. What do you mean by infix? So infix simply means, like here this Vikarana comes as infix. We have not done this class number 7. So that's why we are not doing this part infix. But there are different rules how these Vikarana is applied in order to make Gana. And for class number 7, it applies a little differently. Otherwise, infix simply means that this Vikarana comes between the root and the final ending ti, ta, anti. So some people call this Vikarana as infix, but that's not the best terminology. So I would prefer Vikarana, Gana Vikarana. And it's better to use Sanskrit terminology anyway to understand the Sanskrit language. The question, in the Bhu example, I did not understand why you add Akara 3 times. Oh, okay. So it's not Akara to be added 3 times. So this is the Bhu example. So Akara is not added 3 times. This is like I'm going through step by step. So this is the first. In the first step, I'm saying we add the Akara. In the second step, Okara changes to Okara, and Akara is still to be added. It has not yet been added. In the third step, this Okara becomes Av as per the Sandhi rules, and Akara is yet to be added. And in the fourth step, finally it is added and the final word becomes Bhava. So that's how it is. So it's just I'm showing the step-by-step process. So it's not like sandhi is applied. As I told you, this is not a sandhi. This is a special rule that says you replace ukara by ukara by the guna. So that's how it happens. Okay, there is a question. Why in class 4 the short ikara becomes long ikara? That is a special rule for certain roots. Like div happens to be that kind of root where the ikara changes to ikara. But that's not the general rule. So we are not going into those specific rules of that in this case why it happens. But just to understand that there are certain roots for which additional rules apply, and div happens to be one of those rules. So akara plus okara is okara, that is the guna. So, okay. So here, this step 1, here this step replace the final vowel by corresponding guna letter. So there is no sandhi here. It all says that replace the final vowel by corresponding guna letter. So final vowel O, you replace it by O. That is the corresponding guna letter. This is the sandhi of O changing into Av. And this is the final form. I hope this is clear to you now. Why is 7th class not part of this group? What do you mean 7th class not part of this group? Because you are saying it's nakara, it should end in akara. It does not. There is a special rule in 7th class because of which the stem does not end in akara. So even though the Gana Vikarana says na and it seems like it should become akara, but the way the stem is made, it does not end in akara. That's why the 7th class is not part of this group. Does Dhatu Kosha list the root class? Yes, it does. How do you know which root belongs to which class? Generally, dictionary tells you that information. So, for example, here, this is the dictionary, after dictionary. This link is included in your in the additional links I had given in the document. So here, for example, if I use the word vad and I search, and I'll search in the Roman Unicode just to make sure that everybody understands. So vad, vadati. So it says class 1 parasmaipadi. So you see this is the root class 1 parasmaipadi. So that's how it tells you that this is. And if I say div, then it shows you that 4th class parasmaipadi. So it belongs to 4th class and it's a parasmaipadi. The form is divyati. So dictionary is very helpful. You start seeing it and you'll find that it provides a lot of good information. Chorayati first has an inflection. What is it? Is it chor or chor? I think that inflection should not be there. I'll remove it. Chorayati. So sorry about that. It should not be there. So class 10 in the steps. Again, here is the same thing. You basically have only this step is the main step here. So guna replace penultimate vowel by corresponding guna letter. That's what we have done. So here if you look at chuk, this is chur, okara has been replaced by okara, penultimate vowel by corresponding guna letter. So that is the, and then then you have to just add it up, choraya. All right. So I hope, and remember this I'm telling you, not necessarily that you have to understand how to make a stem of each and every root, but just to give you a feeling of that how does Sanskrit work when we start learning the real rules, that the memorization becomes less and understanding becomes more. It is just like if you are studying chemistry. In the starting, you have to learn formulas, equations, balancing of the equations, and then as you grow a little bit more advanced, you learn periodic table, atomic structure, and you understand that how a certain formula only is possible, other formula is not possible. So it works something like that. If you go through verbal roots, classes, Panini rules, then all the memorization doesn't need to take place. You can understand everything. But in order to, in the starting steps, you cannot start with that. Just like when you start the chemistry, you cannot go with the very basic concepts and explain everything from there. So with this, again, as I said, you don't have to worry about each and every root because some of the roots do follow additional rules and the stem formation will not be such a straightforward thing. But in many cases, it will be. And that should give you a feeling that, okay, you kind of understand how the things are working. What does class mean? When you see the dictionary, what does class mean? Secondly, so with this, I will take the class exercise and see if you can. Okay, so this is the class exercise. I hope it will be okay for you to do that. Okay, so what is the class exercise here? For the roots mentioned in the column root for exercise. So this is the column root for exercise. Please write the stem and lat lakara forms. So lat lakara, you know, titaha anti, we have done multiple times, and as well as atmane. So I have given this root belongs to which class? Man, this is atmanepadi, so you have to apply the atmanepadi endings. And wish, this is the parasmaipadi belonging to 6th. I have not given a 10th class root because it's the class work. So, but you understand the concept once you understand the stem formation. So this is the class work for these 3 roots. Only for lat lakara, please write the present tense verb forms after making the stem. So specify the stem and the lat lakara present forms. Okay. So right now it is 10 o'clock. In probably 10-12 minutes, we'll gather again. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. So this one here, the only this particular one had a step for making the stem, and that step was shuch plus akara, and here the penultimate vowel, it's ukara, it will get replaced by guna letter. Guna is okara, and then this is the stem. So stem will be shocha. So shochati, shochataha, shochanti, like that. This is pretty straightforward. Man plus ya, manyate. So it will become man plus ya, manya. This is the stem. And here also the stem is fairly straightforward. Wish plus a, Vishati. So Vishati, Vishatah, Vishanti, Vishasi, Vishatha, Vishatha, like that. Okay. So this was our exercise. Another thing I want to tell you is this, that a root can belong to more than one class. So there are some special cases where a root can belong to more than one class. Dictionary normally tells you that how many classes does the root belong to. And as you can imagine, if a root belongs to multiple classes, its form, it will have multiple types of form, and those forms will be different for one class from another. And that's primarily the reason, if you look at why the root belongs to multiple classes, because there are so many forms which are available for that root. Those forms are derived to make that root available for multiple classes. An example: the root with, very common, very frequently used root, with. It belongs to class 2 in Parasmaipadi. It means to know, understand, learn, find out, ascertain. And its form is Veti. We haven't done the second class one. I just wanted to tell you that it belongs to second class and its form becomes Veti or Veda. And in Gita, I gave an example, Ya enam Veti Hantaram, one who knows, one who considers. This is the one. So one who knows, or one who understands, one who ascertains, one who considers the soul of capable of killing. So this is the Veti, second class. It also belongs to, the same root belongs to fourth class, Atmanepadi. So here in the second class it's Parasmaipadi, but in the fourth class it becomes Atmanepadi, and that can happen. So root can not only belong to multiple classes, its meaning can change, its form also can change. So here the meaning changes quite significantly. It means to be or to exist. As you see here, it's to know, to understand. Here it's to be, to exist. And the one example in Gita is Nasato Vidyate Bhavo. The unreal has no existence. Then it belongs to sixth class also. So Vidya, you can understand here Vidya. If you add Ya with Vidya. So this is pretty straightforward to make the stem. But so stem part is pretty straightforward. I just wanted to highlight that it belongs to different classes. Then it also belongs to sixth class. And it's Ubhayapadi, means it takes both Parasmaipadi and Atmanipadi. And here there is a special rule. Instead of Vidati, normally you would expect it should become Vidati, but it becomes Vindati. And that's where I told you that the rules which I'm telling you for generating the stems, those are very general rules. There are many other rules which come into play for many verbs. You don't have to be bothered about that, what all those rules are. Just to understand that's how the system is. That's how the process works. So whenever you find that, okay, it belongs to this class, but it doesn't seem like following this rule, please understand that there may be other rules which are applicable, which are not in the scope for this course, Sanskrit 2. When we go to advanced when and if, then those rules can be studied. So here it belongs to sixth class and it becomes Vindati or Vindate. So this Gita example, Swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah ekam apyasthitah samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. And here the meaning changes. It means to get, to obtain, to acquire. It also belongs to seventh class, and there it is Atmanepadi. So to know, it meaning is to know, to understand, which is similar to as it was in the second class. And the form becomes Vinte. This is very uncommon. So even though it belongs to 7th class, but this usage of with dhatu in the 7th class is very rare, and I did not find an example to give it to you. 10th is also not common. It also belongs to 10th class, Atmanepadi, and its forms becomes Vedayate. So this is an example I found from Ramayana. It means Vedayate, to inform. We will include all these examples in the class notes so that you can study them and understand how these things are working. Then there is this verse somebody has created where it gives you the different forms from different classes of the same root. Vetti Sarvani Shastrani means one knows all the scriptures. Vetti, 2nd class. Garvas Tasyana Vidyate. For him, pride does not exist. That means there is no pride in him. Vidyate. Vinte Dharmam Sada Sadbhi. So this is 4th class example. Then Vinte Dharmam Sada Sadbhi. Vinte is the 7th class. By the good people, dharma is well ascertained, well understood. Teshu Pujam Cha Vindati. This is the 6th class. Vindati. They obtain the worship of the people. So this is, of course, I took an extreme example where the root belongs to 5 different classes. That's not common, of course, a root belonging to 5 different classes. But a root belonging to more than one class, it's fairly common. So they just wanted to highlight this example so that if you come across that a root may be saying this class and you see in dictionary and you might find another class, then you know that a root could belong to multiple classes. So I wanted to announce something which I did in the scripture class also this Saturday, but again in this class. We will be creating a WhatsApp broadcast list, and we will use it for our communications regarding reminder about the classes when an important file is uploaded or updated, or any other important communication about the classes. So let's say any other, not necessarily. So all formal or important communications, they will still happen by email. So this is basically primarily for reminder, and I received some email where people have expressed their concern that they don't want to install WhatsApp on their phones, and that is fine. You don't have to install WhatsApp because we will not be sending any important messages using WhatsApp. It will be primarily for some informal messages like reminder about the classes. You can always set up your own reminders. We do not change the Zoom meeting information. So suppose Zoom meeting information is changed, let's say for whatever reason, that we will inform by email. We will not inform just by WhatsApp. We will inform that by email. Or if the class schedule changes, let's say we are not going to have a class on a particular Monday or Saturday, then we will inform that by email. So even if you are not receiving WhatsApp communication, it's not going to have, if you do not want to install, that is fine. We understand that there are concerns for some people, but those who are already using WhatsApp and don't have any particular concerns about using WhatsApp, they can register for this WhatsApp and can start receiving these messages. So none of the very important messages will be by WhatsApp. It's primarily just like when we upload the video file or class notes file, you can always check the directory. So we can just put a one-liner message on WhatsApp that this file is uploaded or this file is updated, so that you can go and check that file. But nothing of very important nature we will communicate by WhatsApp. In order to receive the message, you have to join this list. So you have to create ourselves as a contact. please add us as a contact and send us a WhatsApp message. So this is an important step. You have to add us as a contact in your contact list and send us a WhatsApp message on this with the following information, your name. Another thing is that this is a WhatsApp list, not a WhatsApp group. So nobody else will be able to see your information or will be able to send you a message. So you will not get any spam or any kind of thing. Only Kriya Yoga Institute can send you the message. So this is because there was a request from many people that email is kind of unwieldy for them. And for us also, it's a lot of work to send an email compared to a WhatsApp message. So that's why we decided for all the non-important communication, all the non-informal communication, we will use WhatsApp. So for the reminder, please understand, you can set up your own reminders. We are not changing the time, day, or the Zoom meeting information. If and when it should change, we will inform that information by email. So just wanted to make sure that this is communicated. So you can note down this number and add us in your contact list and send us the information that you are interested in receiving WhatsApp messages and your name. I'll show you the homework. We will upload the homework in your so one homework is this. That we are asking you to write the stem, that the third person singular form in all the 4 lakaras. We have done all these 4 lakaras already. And all you have to do is, you have to put the third person singular form of let lakara, lang lakara, lot lakara, bedne lakara. So you can check your tables. Once you make the stem, it should be pretty straightforward process. So these are the 12 roots. So you can check how to make the stems, and then you can make the stem and then put the forms. Once you understand the third person singular form, you can practically generate the whole table of 3 by 3. So third person singular form is considered key form. So that's why we are not asking you to do the whole table here. Then 18, 19, and 20 is simply lesson 2, 3, and 4 from Sanskrit Subodhini, this book. So there are 3 lessons, 2, 3, and 4. There is solution available on this link and audio of the exercise. This is important. So please always hear the audio. That will give you an indication that how does the Sanskrit sound. And this has been done by the author himself. So pretty good pronunciation. And I would always recommend you to get a feeling of how the Sanskrit sounds looking at the exercises. So these 3 chapters do not cover a lot of ground. We have already done them in our Sanskrit 1 course. This will go as a revision for most of you, but still please do that and submit these exercises. Let me just see the questions if you have any in the chat box. So there is a question, why wish does not become wish? So if you look at why wish does not become wish, because in the wish belongs to 6th class, and 6th class we do not have this rule of guna. The root simply adds the akara and it becomes the stem. That's why wish does not become wish, because it belongs to 6th class. If it were belonging to 1st class, it would have become wish. Then there's a comment, thank you, Baba. I'm surprised and happy that I'm able to do the classwork correctly. Thank you for detailed explanation. I'm happy that you are able to do that. And it also reflects that you are sincere and you are putting your hours to solve the exercise and do the lessons. So that way the understanding becomes better when I'm explaining in the class. There is a question, can we still access Sanskrit 1 notes in the repository? Yes, you can. You can still access the videos and notes in the repository of Sanskrit 1 course. There is a question, can we have the English translation of the example at the end of with multiple usage? I have given them and we will include them in the class notes. Will it be okay to submit homework by WhatsApp? Would be easier many times. Please no. We will not want have the, because we want for us to check the homework or any questions, we primarily would be using the email, because that gives us single platform to reply to you, and WhatsApp does not have, WhatsApp can have text only. So if you want to have tabular for information or those kind of things, in the email for us to also record, it is easier. I can sometimes, if I feel it's more convenient, I can respond to you by WhatsApp by sending an audio message for a quick audio message kind of thing. But when you are submitting the exercise or questions, please use the email, not WhatsApp. There's a question. I see WhatsApp number used both for scripture and Sanskrit 2 class. I already sent in WhatsApp to add my name. Will I be added to both the classes communication groups? Yes, you will be. So whoever is a Sanskrit 2 class student, they will be added to both the lists. Those who are only attending the scripture classes, they will only be added to the scripture class. There is a comment, very good exercise. Thank you. Do we need to pay to access Subodhni audio link? No. We don't, you don't have to pay to access the audio link or the solutions link. Both are available free. Okay, so with this, I also wanted to take a lot of questions have come related to Samasa from the last class. We don't have time for that, but I'm happy that some of you are sending the questions. I will request all of you to, whatever questions you may have, please do send. And some of you who are still doing the class 1 exercise, feel free to submit those also. And if you have any questions related to those. So any questions you have, please feel free to submit those questions. We will try to answer as much as possible. And that way your understanding will become clearer. More you work on the home, more you solve the exercises, more you would be able to follow when I'm taking the classes. Otherwise, soon it can become overwhelming. So we are only doing once in a week practically for the exercises. So it should not be a lot of work. Last time we had 3 classes a week. So that time I understood a lot of people had this complaint, a lot of homework. But now I'm not hearing any complaint, but then many of you are simply not submitting the homework, which I feel is going to be a bit difficult for you going forward, where you may not be able to grasp many of the concepts when we start explaining them. Can we see a screenshot of the OneNote pages? We will include this information in our class notes. So that way you will have the information in the class notes itself in a very structured format. So whatever I'm putting on the whiteboard or on OneNote pages, we include all that information in the class notes. Okay. So with this, we will close the class and with the closing prayers. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you everyone.